Every leaf rustled with whispers, every branch creaked with secrets, and every animal call echoed through the dense underbrush as if the very earth itself were speaking. It was a place where time moved differently, where the air held an ancient pulse, a heartbeat that resonated with the rhythm of the wild. And for Callum Westbrook, an adventurer and naturalist, it was the ultimate challenge. The jungle called to him. Callum had always been drawn to the wilderness. From the moment he could remember, he had felt a deep connection to nature. He had spent his youth exploring the forests near his home, and as he grew older, his travels took him to the wildest corners of the earth. But none of those places compared to the call of the Amazon. The Amazon rainforest was a world apart, an untouched paradise of biodiversity, where the flora and fauna existed in ways that defied all understanding. For centuries, it had held secrets, and for centuries, those secrets had remained just out of reach. Callum knew that his time had come. He had spent years preparing, learning from the greatest experts, and gathering all the knowledge he could. But now, standing on the edge of the jungle, he felt a surge of exhilaration mixed with uncertainty. He wasn't just exploring a jungle. He was about to dive into the heart of the wildest place on Earth, where danger and wonder coexisted, where survival depended on wit and instinct, and where every step taken could be the beginning of something monumental, or the end of it all. The group that had gathered with him was small, yet diverse. There was Ava, a biologist with a passion for discovering new species, Theo, a guide who had grown up in the jungle and whose ancestors had roamed its depths for generations, and Jasmine, a photographer whose lens captured the beauty of nature in ways that words could never quite achieve. The jungle stretched endlessly before them, a vast expanse of green that seemed to go on forever, its beauty both awe-inspiring and overwhelming. It was a living, breathing entity, teeming with life that was sometimes beautiful, sometimes deadly, but always captivating. The air was thick with moisture, the humidity clinging to their skin as they made their way through the undergrowth, the path barely visible beneath the thick layers of vines and roots. Callum led the way, machete in hand, slicing through the dense vegetation with determined precision. His thoughts were focused on the journey ahead, on what they might discover, on what the jungle was hiding. But even as his machete carved through the wilderness, there was a sense of awe that he couldn't shake. They were crossing into unknown territory, a place where few had dared to venture. The deeper they went, the quieter the world around them became. The sounds of civilization faded into the distance, leaving only the noises of the jungle, the hum of insects, the chirps of birds, and the occasional growl of a distant predator. The temperature was rising, sweat dripping down their brows, but they pressed on, driven by the promise of discovery. As they journeyed further, the forest began to change. The trees grew taller, their trunks thicker, their leaves more vibrant. The air grew cooler, and the sounds of the jungle grew richer. They had reached the heart of the Amazon, and it was here that Callum felt the jungle's true power, its ancient energy, its primal presence. They camped beneath the towering trees that night, the stars barely visible through the thick canopy above. The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows on the ground as they sat in a circle, exhausted from the day's trek, but exhilarated by the promise of what lay ahead. "The jungle is a living organism," Ava said, her voice thoughtful as she stared into the fire. "It has a way of absorbing everything that comes into it. The plants, the animals, even the people. It changes you whether you want it to or not." Callum nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. He had heard of the jungle's transformative power before, but hearing it from someone like Ava, who had studied it so thoroughly, made him realize how deep the connection ran. The jungle wasn't just a place on a map. It was an entity, a force of nature that could shape the course of history. The next day, they pushed deeper into the jungle, guided by Theo, who knew the land better than anyone. His eyes darted between the trees, his every step calculated as he moved through the dense underbrush. He spoke little, but when he did, his words carried weight. "There's a river up ahead," Theo said, pointing through the trees. "We'll follow it for a while. The jungle is quieter near the water, easier to track." The idea of following a river sounded simple enough, but Callum knew better than to underestimate the jungle. The Amazon had a way of transforming every simple task into an arduous challenge. The river was no different. It was deep, wide, and fast-moving, with jagged rocks lining its banks. The team moved cautiously, each of them watching their footing, the sounds of the river drowning out the rest of the jungle. They spent the next several days following the river, traveling by foot when the banks were too steep or navigating makeshift rafts when the river allowed it. The days were long. The nights were filled with the hum of the jungle, and the jungle itself seemed to breathe alongside them, ever watchful, ever waiting. As the group ventured deeper, they began to notice something strange: patterns in the trees, carvings in the bark, subtle signs that something more than just nature was at work here. There were remnants of human presence, ancient symbols carved into the stone and bark, artifacts left behind by a long-forgotten civilization. The Zatari, Ava murmured one evening as they stumbled across a series of intricately carved stones near the river's edge. This must be it, the ancient tribe that disappeared centuries ago. They're said to have worshipped the jungle, lived in harmony with it. But their civilization vanished, without a trace. Callum felt a thrill of excitement. The Zatari tribe had been a mystery for centuries, their story passed down only in whispers. To uncover the truth about them, to find out where they had gone and what they had left behind, was a dream come true. But the deeper they went, the more they realized that the jungle was not just hiding the remnants of the Zatari, it was guarding them. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the team stumbled upon something they had not expected: an ancient stone structure hidden beneath the vines and overgrowth. It was a temple, its design unlike anything Callum had ever seen before, symbols and carvings that seemed to pulse with energy, as if the stone itself were alive. "The call of the wild," Callum whispered, stepping closer to the temple. "It's not just a phrase. It's real." As the team approached the temple, they felt it, a presence, a force that seemed to envelop them. The jungle, once a place of mystery and beauty, had become something else entirely. It had become alive, aware of their presence. And as they crossed the threshold of the temple, they knew that their journey was about to take a turn they hadn't anticipated. The call of the wild had led them here, and the jungle was waiting.